Assalamualaikum, good morning, buenos dias. Welcome back to this is the second plenary session. And today, for this morning, the session, if you have your flyer with you, okay, and you will look at the description right at the back there. The session is on a project which is called Your Language, My Culture. Okay, and this project is a project which has been with you with IKMAS. UKM since for 2 years now. We are finishing 2 years into the project. So first of all, let me say thank you once again for all of you for being here, and then I would like to quickly introduce the panelists. Okay, on my immediate right is Professor Dato Zawiyah, who is a adjunct professor at IKMAS and the head of our project. So she is the leader of the troop. And then to the far right, we have Professor Noraini, and she is in charge of the material development unit of our program. And to my immediate left is Professor Raza, who is within the team of research, the next unit within the program. And far left is Associate Professor Rosniah, who is from the team that is in charge of training. So what we're going to do is share with you a short video first, and then I will take about less than 10 minutes, about 5 minutes or so, to give the context of the program. Then after that we will go through with the different presentations, to have the overview of the language, the program Your Language, My Culture. Adi for having the video on. And from the video, that is a short introduction to give you the scope about this project called Your Language, My Culture, Su Cultura y Mi Lengua. Yo trato. Betul. Okay, good. I got to check with some experts here, you know. Okay. My role here is actually to give the context of our project and, in fact, how it is actually located in Lhasa 5 today, how we're going to present this. But before that, let me introduce a couple of people here. In front of me right here, this is Tuan Haji Wan Zuraidi. He is the head of the English curriculum division within the Terengganu State Education Department. So Tuan Haji, thank you very much for coming all the way from Terengganu, because it is through his division. Yes. That he is our strategic partner in Terengganu. Through him we have access to the 147 schools, the secondary schools in Terengganu, and the teachers. And also you have seen in the video, but behind, and you have met before, Prof. Dato Rahman, who is also in the board of directors for Yayasan Diraja Sultan Mizan, board of trust directors, yeah, trustees, board of trustees, yeah, of YDSM. Now, as a quick introduction to our project, okay, what is Your Language, My Culture? What is the program? Yeah, YLMC. Now, it is actually a supplementary model for the KBSM English program in school, and it is a reading module to provide cultural content for speaking and writing in English. It uses local culture materials, mostly Terengganu specific, because in this case we are doing it for the state of Terengganu. Now, what does supplementary means? It means that through this module, we do not take the module does not take over the national English syllabus, yeah? And it does not also not replacing but complementing current textbooks which are being used, and it is only filling the culture gaps in KBSM textbook for cultural balance. So that is what the project is about. It is not about overtaking the standard curriculum which is being taught in the schools, yeah? So why Terengganu? Okay, why Terengganu? Because actually IKMAS have been involved in a number of projects before this in Terengganu, and there were also a number of enabling circumstances here. So UKM as it is have been having projects in different states. So IKMAS has been assigned actually to have projects in Terengganu. So we decided to build upon this particular project, which is called UKM at State Window. So UKM at Terengganu, and then this is a YDSM funded project, and it is in collaboration with the JPNT. JPNT is the education division within the state of Terengganu. And from some studies which have been done, we found out that the English failure rates in Terengganu, based on the statistics in the last 5 years, is quite high. So because of that, we wanted to have a program that can actually supplement to better the English proficiency in the country. And we all know English is a language that is a lingua franca that is being used across in many regions, and of course between our two regions, English is also a form of communication, just as what we are doing right now. So the way the project is being done, from the conceptual part to the implementation part, there are 3 different groups, 3 groups, yeah, in the project. And these 3 project groups are the material development, and for material development, we have to draft lessons for the different forms. We started with form 1. So in our education system, that will be called similar to lower junior high school, Form 1, Form 2 and Form 3. So we developed lessons for Form 1. We have done that last year, which is being implemented this year. Now we're developing for Form 2 and Form 3. We hope by next year we will finish developing the material until Form 5, Form 4 and Form 5. Yeah? And then you have the research assessment unit. Now, any work that is being done, we need to know the impact on it. So we have a research unit with us, and we started with a pilot school assessment first. 5 schools were chosen in the state of Terengganu. So they come from different kinds: urban school, rural school, school by the sea, Felda school, elite school, and so on. And so the team went through with assessment of the 5 schools, and then we developed further. Finally, of course, you need the third one, training of trainers. So this is another unit that developed the training for the master trainers first. Because remember, we have right now we have 53 schools going through the program, about 9,000 students. So we need to train the teachers, but the master trainers and the master trainers train the others. Okay, so that's how we develop. So why is YLMC applicable to Latin America? You'll be wondering why we have it here. You see, although Spanish and Portuguese are studied in Latin America, English as a functional language is gaining popularity. So we know that it is being studied in different schools and so on. So we feel that by using YLMC culture matrix, local culture can be taught and preserved. Okay, and when students, when they study English, having the familiarity with the material, that can actually greatly increase English language proficiency. So using your own culture, whether it is from Mexico, whether it is from Costa Rica, from different countries, as the content in building up the material to study English, students are much more familiar with it. So we feel that that is why it is appropriate that we share with you a project that we are doing for Terengganu, but even within Malaysia, each state has its own uniqueness. So this is something that we are working on. And finally, I got one last slide like that. Okay, context for LASA itself. If you notice, we have been discussing about the theme, which is regional societal integration. Thus, accepting, respecting and preserving culture is in line with promoting regional societal integration. And here, language is the tool to do so. And YLMC is a tested module, although it is in the second year. We do have the mandate to continue for at least to Form 3, and then we shall look into Form 4 and Form 5. And YLMC at the conceptual level was actually first presented in Costa Rica in February 2015, and Dr. Vinicio will vouch for it when Prof. Zawiyah and I went to the conference, the UNESCO conference, which was organized at your center, yeah, and with a paper that Prof. Dato Zawiyah presented entitled "Your Language, My Culture, English at the Equator." I'm sorry, I messed the word. It is English on the Equator, and that was presented at the Instituto Centroamericano de Administración Pública. Barusan. Okay, so this is just to give the context of the program, and now I will pass it over to Prof. Dato Zawiyah for her presentation.
Assalamualaikum and good morning everybody. My job here is to explain to you the concept behind the project and the program. And let me tell you that the reflected that local culture in English language teaching. The use of local culture. That's the concept. This concept is actually not new. It doesn't fall from the sky in the year 2014, on the lab, on the Royal Lab of Kendari, you know, it is 26 years, isn't it? When it first started, it was not about languages, it was about literature. My field is literature. And I was telling the idea of how to teach English literature differently on the equator. How to have different pedagogy for it. I was telling the idea at home and abroad, and I went to conferences in Singapore, in Hong Kong, and in the Philippines, where it was well received, especially in the Philippines, not so much in Singapore. Eerily enough, the title of my paper that has been published in the Philippines was exactly that. This was in 1997. Your Language, My Culture, Domesticating English Literature for the Post-Colonial Classroom. That was the title. And now we have come back here because things have changed. Language has taken center stage. And there is now pro-English and anti-English and anti-English debate going on, raging in our country. And we have decided, my colleagues and I have decided to move there, move into the area, in English, English language teaching. Okay, here are the objectives. There are only two objectives. We have twin objectives. Use of local culture to upgrade English and to raise cultural awareness at the same time. There are only two. Yeah? Alright. And how did you plan to do this? Okay, so we plan to develop a syllabus, in order to better our coverage of the cultural content. The cultural content, we have to interface with the language content, which is the reading metric. So there are two. Remember our twin objectives. One is proficiency, one is cultural awareness or enrichment. So we have to have a metric for both culture and reading language, and we have to interface these two. And then we are on the way to achieving our twin objective. So this is the work of Unit 1, to work on the syllabus, to interface culture and language, which she will elaborate when she presents the paper. Next one is you provide local content through reading for better performance of oral and written communication in English. We cover the three skills: reading, writing, and speaking. Okay? Because you give a content, you give a reading content through your reading passages and exercises. And so students will have content to talk about, otherwise it's going to be talking in a vacuum. So we give them content so that they are comfortable with what to say and how to say it. We teach them how to say it. Yeah? And okay, next one. We also have to develop a reading perspective that is not Eurocentric, that is not Anglophile, that is our own perspective. Yeah? But we don't throw away the Western perspective. We teach our students to recognize that that their perspective is their own, but there is an in existence other perspective, including English perspective, European perspective, all already embedded in the text, in the language. It's already embedded there. Yeah, and sometimes without, because it's naturalized, you're not aware. When you say, see you keep your fingers crossed, this is Eurocentric. here we don't say keep your fingers crossed. We say you pray for it. Yeah. So that is a difference in perspective from here and from Europe. Right. And so we have to have a teacher training, which will be done by Rosniah. And next one. Program evaluation, which will be done by Proficiency. So that's why we need to have these 3 units. And because we have financial, administrative and academic machinery integrated, this will create a self-sufficient project with an internal built-in mechanism for covering all bases of our operation. So we are pretty independent in that sense. Next one. Yeah. This is what we hope to get. Increased language proficiency. Students achieve both language proficiency and cultural enrichment. Students read and write and speak in English about their own culture. Then students are able to differentiate between their own perspective and Western perspective. So what do we hope to gain by all this move? Firstly, we hope that in the process of learning a second language this way, they also gain awareness and appreciation of the richness of their own heritage, thus strengthening their cultural identity. Secondly, we hope that while they learn English as a second language, they will pick up the right vocabulary and appropriate language to explain, to speak and to write in English what they now know about their own culture and heritage. We hope that they understand the relatedness of what they learn in other disciplines in school to the realities of their everyday lives, as well as the values of their own society. And thirdly, we hope that while doing all these things, when they read for information and knowledge in English, they will learn to differentiate their own perspectives, rooted in their own value system, and Western perspectives organically embedded in the class. But as in everything else in academia, there are opposing views. Sometimes there are 10 conflicting views. I will summarize it into 2 opposing views. The question about using culture in the textbook, in the syllabus, it's not a problem. They all advocate, sociolinguists advocate using culture in textbooks, in instructional material. The question is, which culture do you use? Which culture do you use? And the old guard will say that English is a language. If you want to learn English, you learn English culture. You learn European culture. So you have to assimilate English culture. But newer sociolinguists, they are saying ELT, English language teaching, especially in the English as a second language culture, must be independent of the English culture, in this cultural context. So we localize the teaching and learning of English in your own place, in your own localize, in other words, localize the material. The material should be based on students' experiences, not how to get into the tube in London. That is so foreign to the students here. So that is what it means by 2 opposing views. We happen to take the first view, 4. We are for localizing the material. Yeah. Okay. Here's the concept of using local input for proficiency. This is the first leg. Remember? First for proficiency, the other one is for cultural enrichment. For proficiency, this is what we intended to do. We make English practical and simple to our students. And we start with the familiar. And what is familiar is their own environment, their own culture. Yeah? Local culture facilitates learning of ESL by making associations between English and the learner's experience. Local contextualization enables learners to be more interactive in English, especially when they know the content already. We are teaching them through reading the content of their own society, of the details of their own society. They know the content. Now the problem of how to communicate, and we teach that. And Western, this is the flip side. Western contexts are unfamiliar. They are even, when Western content is unfamiliar, and they are even intrusive into the culture, into the culture of the learner. You are forced to integrate, you are forced to learn alien culture while learning, while being forced to learn a language. So you have two variables there. One is to learn a language for proficiency, then you have to grapple with a foreign and alien culture. And so our plan is to eliminate one variable, which is the alienation that students feel when they're confronted with a foreign language, foreign culture. And contextualization enables learners more interaction with English because we have taken out the anxiety of not knowing what to say, because the culture is different. And we are providing them with facility in language to express what they already know in their own culture. So that facilitates teaching of English. How important? You ready? Quickly. No, this is too slow. Speed up. Okay. Please read those. This is for cultural enrichment. Influence of instructional materials on attitudes of self and society. We take cognizance of this research finding. Influence of linguistic imperialism on vulnerable cultures. Imperialism can be modern imperialism of globalization. Globalization can push minor societies and languages out or on the territory. So we are trying to stop this current trend in English of specific cultures. This is the current trend we are adopting because this is the latest current trend. I can rattle off Eric, Crystal, and other people who are for this. Yeah? And this is also our effort at cultural preservation because the culture of Hollywood is a great leveler. Everybody becomes the big. Culturally, and we don't let that happen. Okay. 1 minute? 1 minute. Okay. This is how we see our role in the previous one. This is how we see our role in the bigger picture. Mission education. We are filling in. This is the first one. We're filling in the gap in the CBSM syllabus. The national syllabus is concerned with proficiency only, and there are no cultural studies per se. And they go Malaysian in the first year. They go abroad for the second year. The literary texts are all English. Okay, so we are fine. We're not disturbing that. Let the students have the right exposure outside. Yeah? We are only balancing it. We are only going into the gap missing in the KBSM with this syllabus. So we are in fact providing another role we play is we are providing an alternative English language teaching pedagogy for national debate, which is raging on now. The pro-English view, they have the fear of lost opportunities in globalization. They want upward mobility, players in trade, but not that they want English for that, and they fear that they are losing this to developing countries. China is going big on this. Korea and Vietnam. And they might even overtake us. And then the anti-English view is fear of losing natural language and culture. This is a traditional nationalist view that we will lose all this in the face of linguistic imperialism. So we see the program as taking the fear out of everybody. It's taking the fear out of pro-English, it's taking out the fear of anti-English. And we make English, we create a feel-good perception of English as an enabler, not a destroyer of national growth. We use English to achieve our national goal. We don't throw the baby with the bathwater. We would use it. Yes. And thirdly, we see this as minimizing marginalization impact of globalization on local culture. Okay. A lot of countries have did this. I can cite you an example in Bhutan, in Solo, in Indonesia, but they are using local made translated into English. That it is not integrated into a proficiency program. That's the difference between what's going on outside Malaysia and what's going on here. So we integrate it because our objectives are two: proficiency and culture. We mustn't lose our eyes on the ball, two balls. And this is our stance. While we promote English language proficiency, we need to be urgently proactive in dealing with the irreversible impact of global English. That is fast-changing language policies and marginalizing local language, culture and values of non-English speaking countries around the world. Yeah, okay, we skip the 5-year plan. And this is the overall picture, how we convert concepts into implementation. Okay, for cultural metrics that we have to do, this is our own, which we will copyright. We divide the coverage into 4 categories: about our own heritage, about literature, values and society, and language issues. So these are the 4 tracks. We cover the 4 tracks in our cultural metrics. Then this cultural metric must be interfaced with reading metrics. This is for proficiency. And what result is the syllabus. This is our syllabus, which she will talk about now. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Zawiyah. So now, Prof. Mareng.
Thank you very much, Chair. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon, everyone. I don't know whether you realize, but Prof. Zawiyah has taken us from morning to afternoon. And so now, this is Unit 1's contribution to the YLMC project, and the task is, as you see in our abstract, which is interfacing the, before that, the previous slide, if I could. Yes, this unit was headed by Prof. Zawiyah until October 1st, and the other members are Dr. Noreen Yusof, Dr. Zainal Osman, and myself. And the task that the unit was assigned to do was actually to find an interfacing the right reading matrix with the right culture matrix as a methodological framework for mapping textbook coverage and the syllabus, which Prof. Zawiyah has introduced us to just now. And the process, if I could just explain the process, and that will make it easier for everyone. The first thing that we did was to really understand the Form 1 syllabus in relation to the Form 1 to 3, the entire first 3 years secondary education syllabus. We looked at the Form 1 syllabus, we adopted the definition of culture, and then from there we developed 4 tracks. From there we performed the culture mapping for Terengganu, and then we developed the YLMC culture matrix, we reviewed the existing reading taxonomies. From there, we adopted the most appropriate taxonomy, and then we interfaced the culture matrix and the reading matrix, and from that meeting of culture matrix and reading matrix, we developed the materials and ended with the evaluating whether the interface is successful or otherwise. Okay, next slide. So now, let me just show you the conceptual framework of the two key concepts which Prof. Zawiyah has also introduced you just now. The culture on the one hand and the reading taxonomies on the other. So here, what is our take on culture? We adopted the definition from UNESCO, where culture is a set of distinctive spiritual, material, intellectual and emotional features of society or a social group, and that it encompasses, in addition to art, literature and lifestyles, ways of living together, value systems, traditions and beliefs. So here we are looking at what some would call the big C as well as the small c. So our materials development axis looks like this. As Prof. Zawiyah has mentioned just now, so we have the meeting of reading matrix and culture matrix, but the four tracks that we developed are heritage across disciplines. It was called across disciplines initially, but now we have, with better insight and knowledge, we have changed it to values and society, literature, and as well as about language. And the reason is simply because we actually surveyed the readings of Form 1, and we discovered that we can actually group them into four. That's actually the academic explanation. The non-academic explanation, of course, is that there are four of us. So let's move on now to the local culture mapping, which Prof. Zawiyah said. So from the four tracks, we built the local culture mapping, and as you can see, the first one, which is very important, is actually we're looking at Terengganu State, and Terengganu State is special in the sense that it has a very strong heritage, number one. So in heritage, if I could just focus on heritage first, the issue is understanding your heritage, and the topic of the lesson, the first one, is actually under Terengganu Sultanate. It works, because after all, the symbol of Terengganu State is the Sultan. Apart from that also, the Prof. Zawiyah was in charge of heritage, looked into, developed materials on traditional Malay houses and also traditional Terengganu food. By the way, there are 3 lessons per track, so there are actually 12 lessons to be covered. The second one, about language, we look at varieties of English, local language in perspective, using polite expressions, and on the right, the topics of the lesson. For literature, because in the Malaysian syllabus, we actually have one component of literature in English, right? The small L. Yeah, the small L. So we have that component. And she was tasked, Dr. Nari was tasked with interfacing what's in the book, the student's book, with what's in Terengganu. So she had quite a challenge, but she managed to come up with, for example, the story of Princess Maya, and Man and His City, and retelling of a short story, Pak Pandir, the village food. Okay, so these are aspects of Malaysian culture. I must say, however, that despite the fact that we tried to contextualize Terengganu, there were times when we couldn't really find Terengganu-centric, so we moved it out the basic to Malaysian perspective. And then, of course, we have values and society. And this is my pride and joy, I must say, because the first lesson was what makes a Malaysian sportsman. I did play hockey at one time in my life, and I was looking for some sports icon, because I thought usually in language learning the boys are somewhat marginalized and they must have a topic that they can actually address to, and I selected a Malaysian champion, a cyclist really, and lo and behold, he actually won a bronze medal in the Olympics. So at the time when this was done, it wasn't the Olympics yet, but when he won that, it was about the time when the teachers were introducing the topic. So this became, after technical default, the most popular lesson ever. Anyway, so let's move on. So now, from the local culture matrix for Form 1, if I could just explain to you through Prof. Zawiyah's work. So if you look at heritage, we have Royal Regalia, These are actually the topics here. The state symbols, and then we have the royal lineage. We also have, she produced a lesson on traditional Malay houses, as I mentioned, focusing on the specific features as well as on the rituals that were carried out before a house was built. But her pride and joy, I suppose, now is on food, because she introduced this topic on food and the traditional ketupat sotong. And the teacher actually did it like domestic science studies. What material students learn by process how to make that particular food item. So it was really good. Okay, so from there we'll just move to the reading matrix now. So the other choice that the other thing that we had to do was actually to choose the right reading matrix to accompany the culture matrix that you have seen just now. Now, as educators, we know that in reading we can actually allude to Bloom. And then there was a discussion and a review of Bloom, found that Bloom was good but not good enough in relation to the kind of rigor that the student has to do because of some lacks in Bloom. If we just look, so we looked at Webb's depth of knowledge as well as Hess's cognitive rigor matrix, which is actually a combination of both Bloom and Webb's DOK. So yes, this is Bloom, as we are all aware of. Bloom and the 6 categories, what Bloom had earlier, and then the revised one, which is actually a change from nouns to verbs. Yeah. So next slide, Adi. Thank you. So the verb, Bloom uses verbs to differentiate different taxonomy levels, and the problem with Bloom, as the reviews were, is that many verbs would appear at multiple levels, but it didn't show the kind of rigor that was necessary for a student to go into when they're performing the task. Hence, Bloom was used in conjunction with number 2, which was depth of knowledge, where this is more of a scale of cognitive demand, using the same verb but with different levels of intensity, as we see in the next diagram. You can see the next diagram. So we have actually depth of knowledge level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. What it means really is this: with the same verb, a student may be performing different levels of cognitive rigor. That means the student needs to be intellectually processing at a higher rate. Right? But level 1, 2, 3 and 4 is what we have actually adopted in Hashim. But it doesn't mean that for all the lessons we use this 4 lessons. Some lessons may not lend itself to having all the 4 levels. We might start at 3, or we might skip 3 and go to 4, depending on the kind of activities that we would like the students to do. Because remember, when Prof. Zawiyah mentioned it's a supplementary reading program, it doesn't mean students just read passively. Reading is always reading into writing or reading into speaking. So the context of the additional activities will determine whether we stop at 1 or we continue at 2, at 3 or at 4, depending on, as I mentioned just now, the level of complexity that we need the students to engage in. Right? So, as I mentioned just now, also it's Bloom and the use of verbs. So okay, let's look at the next one. The next one. So this has a combination of both Bloom and DOK, and it's represented as. Sorry, you can't see it. This is not a trade secret, but because this is a packaged place, we show it as it is originally. But our adapted version is in the next slide. Yeah, and this is the one. So we have 4 stages here, levels 1, 2, 3 and 4, even with the same verbs: describe, explain or interpret. We can, within the context of the activity, demand whether the students stop at 1 or encourage them to do 2 or 3 or 4. Like I mentioned again, we do not expect all the students to do 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Oh sorry, 1 is usually a 6, 3 and 4. Because again, yet another factor into the decision of where we stop is also the syllabus, the requirements of the syllabus. But as a supplementary reading module, we have the perhaps the freedom to move a little bit further out from the syllabus itself. Okay. So now just to apply the interface onto an existing lesson, this is one of the Terengganu South. And probably I actually wanted me to show you the Utupat Sotong, but for certain technical reasons, I would like to show you heritage. So it's like this. So we have the track, and then we have the cultural content, which is here heritage is on the royal regalia. This is the Southern. The royal regalia, the state symbols, and the royal lineage. What's interesting is when we remember this is cultural enrichment. When we introduced this lesson to the students and the teachers, there were students and teachers who actually confessed that this lesson is something very new to them. But the way we took it, it could also be because it's in English. So they may know it in Malay, but they may not know it in English. So this is facilitating. So okay, on the extreme right column, where we look at the reading and culture matrix, for example, the first one, to recall, then you see the verb to write. And then in terms of the second level, we have the skill concept, which is we're asking the students to study, and then the strategic thinking. But in terms of this lesson, level 4 is, we found it not to be appropriate for this, so we did not actually go into level 4. So yes. So essentially, these are the technicalities that were involved in interfacing the culture and the reading matrix. Now, looking back, because this is for Form 1 and we are actually moving into Form 2, of course there are issues that we have, we have to address. Because, sorry? Oh, okay, just 2 seconds, yeah? So, we have questions like, we ask ourselves whether the cultural and enrichment aspect has been satisfied. We also ask ourselves whether the students have also had their language proficiency and competency enhanced. We also ask ourselves whether our lessons have been well received by the students and whether they are of the right level of difficulty. And this question will be answered by Robert, inshallah. Thank you very much, Mustaffa. Yeah? Based on that, today I just good idea of what they want happening in their classroom. So for
We could have a photo session. Yeah. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite Professor Dato Dr. I would like to invite Emeritus